Hi, do you want solar panels or do you hate them? Are you thinking that the guy who knocked on your door and told you they were going to improve your real estate value by some crazy percentage might have something there? Or are you swearing at them as you drive through subdivisions and see them glaring back at you from rooftops? I'm Ruth Sheehan from the Ruth Sheehan team.
And I'm Danielle Tully
with eXp Realty. And today we're talking about solar panels and whether any of this is true.
Well, I'm going to say I'm quite biased.
I'm a little biased too.
Yes. So generally, Ruth and I, probably because we come from a real estate background, are very, we are on the negative side about them. Probably because when I see them, I tick off all of the reasons that I have seen, thankfully not experienced, but heard of and know of and seen secondhand, the negative facts that people don't think of when they're getting it.
And to me, the thing is, I have heard with my own ears salespeople touting the addition to real estate value that typically does not exist.
Absolutely. We've had 2 or 3 people come in and seriously talk to us about solar panels, and Scott and I want to theoretically, but
in theory, I'm totally for them.
Can never pull the trigger because I'm like, he couldn't answer this and he couldn't answer this and he couldn't answer this. So the sales.
And they can, I'm fine with them talking about what it might save you. The moral question is something that people need to answer for themselves. And there's controversy on both sides of that. Is it, more or less moral to use solar energy if the parts are manufactured or mined in places where there aren't a whole lot of laws protecting people? But really, the claims of additional real estate value is what ticks me off because we know that it is not true. And we know also that people don't understand what will add value to their home and what won't, and that changes sometimes. So this is also something that could change as I think there are markets where they've been around a lot longer and they're more omnipresent and
yes.
And it makes more of a value
yes
impact. I won't necessarily say addition because it's not always true.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I know that there's parts of the country, one agent was talking about Hawaii. The cost of energy there is just so sky high because they have limited space and resources and things like that. And what do they have in their abundance? Sun.
Yeah.
And so the idea that they can convert it for much, much less is, I get that. But here I question it. So we will start to give you our reasoning. We didn't just wake up one day and say, we think solar panels are a really bad idea. Like I said, we've seen, we've heard, we've come up with a whole bunch of reasons why it's had a negative effect on real estate and the buying and the selling.
And like really just about everything we do, we tend to be open. We're constantly learning. We're constantly questioning. And this is relatively new in our area. So we're talking as usual about our geographic area. We will, have some anecdotes from other parts of the country, but we're in Illinois and we get 2 weeks of blazing sun
this weekend.
It's 175 degrees.
Yes.
And we get 6 months of winter with snow and gray. Then we get spring for a day and a half. Fall usually lasts about a week, and that's what the weather's like here. So when you're using a weather-dependent energy manufacturing device, it can, there's probably, I'm guessing, years that are better and years that are worse, or times that are better and worse. but you have to really take that into account.
Mm-hmm. So we'll start off with a pro, right? We will say that if you personally feel like you would like to take advantage of sometimes net, you have equal amount or even a little farther, a little less payment. So say your payments are usually $150 a month, and with the cost or the lease or the payment plan of these solar panels, you're now paying $125. Great. For right now, take advantage of that if you would like. But that doesn't last. So that's the first. We'll bring this up first, even though this was not in our order that we talked about. But since I kind of tagged in there.
And anything you're talking about doing for your home that is for you, by all means, do it. If you can afford it and you're going to enjoy it, do it. That's great.
Yes.
Just, we have had so many people over the years tell us about something that they spent money on with the intention of getting that money back at sale. And it's so difficult and painful to tell people that, sometimes not only are they not going to get that money back, but it might actually cost them money.
Correct. So if you want to paint your entire kitchen pink, bright pink, because you love it, because it's your favorite color, and for the next 5 years you want to be making lunch and dinner as you're figuring out what never ends in life is what to eat next and what to make next. If you want to do that in a very bright room, do it. Go for it. Know that in 5, 10, however many years you have that, whenever you're ready to move on, that there's a good chance that it's going to be a negative for somebody else.
And if it's paint, it's an easy remedy. If it's something that costs $20,000 or $30,000, that's going to be a lot harder for you to swallow.
Correct. This is a $20,000 or $30,000, but I want it.
So then the other thing about it is, how are you mentioned this briefly, but how's it getting paid for? What are the options? And if you've got a buyer coming, what are their options? So Danielle.
Yes. So like I said, these they often don't talk to you. So salespeople, that's why we're different, right? It's like going into a car dealership, right? They say, what do you want your payments to be? So they ask you, how much do you pay? You pay $150. Great. We will get your monthly bill to be $130. Okay. And then you're hooked. $130. But they didn't actually tell you how much this whole thing cost and how many years you're going to be making these payments. So they are often very large, very long. Actually, I was saying $20,000, $30,000. I meant to say 20 to 30 years is what these leases or payment plans usually are. And what happens when you get these and you sign up for these, in all of this paperwork, talks about liens. They now put a lien on your house, which is like it comes right after the mortgage people, which means you're not selling the house without them knowing it. So if you're not aware of how long this is going to last, because I don't believe is a lot of oversight of these salespeople either. They come knocking on your door. They had this job for a week and a half. They learn from somebody else. They tell you what you need to know, and then you have the fine print contract.
They probably were at the car dealership last week.
Correct. Or the sales center somewhere else, making phone calls. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a lot to understand before you start selling to people. So, that's an issue. You need to know what you're spending and what that means for the long term. Yeah. And so that's our first thing.
Just comparing it to your energy bill, certainly that's a factor, but that's where they have the, kind of glossy side by side. In the summer, your electric bill is this.
Correct.
Well, now we can make it this.
So how about this? In 1995, the internet is becoming a thing, late 90s, and you bought a computer. And you have speed. Wow, you can download things. You can do things that you've never had the speed before. How do you feel about that computer today? Is that computer working as fast as you had hoped now? Is it providing you with all of your needs? Chances are no, because technology goes so fast these days. So that's what you're doing, essentially. You are taking a technology today and you are making those payments for 20 or 30 years and taking that on well past its obsolescence.
Remember how cool it was when those people had those giant satellite dishes in their backyard, were like the size of a Volkswagen? There was one in Beverly that was actually in the front yard, so it must have had a better sight line to the satellite.
Yes. Satellite. The one out there.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I think it was Skylab. So when you think about how far technology has moved in the past 20 years, so we're talking Y2K bug to today, is that really something you want to commit to for that length of time? And knowing that solar is, while it's, gaining ground, it's still very early in its
technology
lifespan.
Yeah.
And
that's in addition, that's the unknown, right? Where are we going to be in 5, 10, 15 years, right? We don't know that right now. But the flip side to that is that they already tell you that after X amount of years, the usefulness of the panels are going to go down as far as how much. So if they're working at whatever, if they're providing you with 100% of your electricity now, in 5 years, it's less. And in 5 years after that, it's less.
So they've essentially kind of wear down, or?
I believe so. I think it's just saying that, yes, it's the capacity that it can take is just going to be, less.
So
I'm trying to figure out what I to attribute it to, but it's like a person.
Exactly.
We're not as strong, as fast, has as much energy when we're 15 as we do when we're 5. We decidedly don't have as much when we're 40 as when we were 5. And so that's kind of what it is. We're still there. We're still chugging along. But darn it, that energy went somewhere.
But to me, then the big thing is still paying that bill. So if you think back to that awesome projection TV you had, you did eventually have to find a way to dispose of it and probably had to pay somebody to take it away. But if you were still paying the bill for that projection TV today, you'd probably not be very happy with yourself.
Yes, exactly. And you just said something about it, the perfect thing about what to do with projection TVs. That's the other thing so this is probably, this is more probably for a buyer who takes on something like this, that they're like, these are old, these are 10 years old.
Keep it in mind if you're looking at houses, especially in this market where you're like, I want the house. I don't care if it's got Santa Claus on the roof.
Correct. So what we don't talk about this. They don't talk, oh yes, no, it's fine for the roofs. Okay. So what do you do when you're done with it? How do we dispose of these? Where do they take them? Do you think you're going to throw them out for Groot in the front, or whoever your waste management provider is? You're not. And there's many of these large things on your roof that you now are done with. And what happens about your roof when you have to change it? So your roof needs to be replaced because the front end, you have it on your back. The front is awful, and the whole thing needs to be pulled off. Who's taking them down? Who's making sure that they don't get damaged? Who's putting them back up? What happens when they put the little rivets into your roof and creating holes into it to install these?
And what if it's, how new does your roof have to be? So if you've got a new roof, you might be damaging your new roof. But if you've got an older roof, what happens if you need to replace it? Mm-hmm. What if you've still got 5 years left on your roof, but you install 20 years of solar panels?
Correct. And from what I understand, I'm not making, I'm not guaranteeing this, but from what I understand, when they talk about guaranteeing these solar panels, it's like, if hail hits the panel itself and it's no longer working, but other damage, like damage that might be coming seeping, or the joints or whatever they are, the holders that put it into the roof, those type of things, those can have damage.
Thingies.
Yeah. I had the word earlier, and now, of course, I'm blanking because I'm in it.
I think you said brackets.
Brackets. Thank you. That's the word. So that's, the brackets and things like that. Do they deteriorate? Do they get, there's just a lot. And then they do talk about one of the selling points is that they'll move it for you. Okay. Again, that's now what are you leaving the homeowners with, the new owners with? What's on their roof? The brackets, the holes, the whatever else has been piling up underneath them. I think that there's a lot of promises being made, I think, and that's the problem. But let's talk, instead of the pros and cons of those like this. Again, let's get back to probably real estate related.
And it's really about, we just want people to consider all the questions and to thoroughly ask them and investigate them. So don't just talk to somebody who shows up at your door and hand them a check as a deposit without really looking into these things. And the reason all of these things that we're bringing up may not be an issue with every single company, but they have been real live issues that people have had happen to them. So
correct.
We are, and they didn't know at the time. So when people found out that, for instance, a buyer who they were under contract with suddenly no longer qualified to buy their house because when you added the debt of the solar panels to their mortgage equation, it threw everything off and they couldn't buy the house. So that's devastating to both buyer and seller. Some sellers choose to pay off the loan, but then you need to understand that value did not go on top of your sales price in order for you to subtract it.
No.
And
are not, again, in our area, appraisers are not giving value to these items.
yes, they are in some places where it's been well established.
Correct.
Some of those sunny climes, they're used to them now.
Yeah, it's kind of an equivalent of leaving a gymnasium and back, a swing set.
Right.
It's something that you decide to leave. It is not part of the house. It's of the house.
And you might find buyers that this is important to also, but there are fewer of them. And anytime we diminish the buyer pool, the law of supply and demand says that has a price reaction.
Correct. And you're right. So not only could the buyers no longer be eligible because now they have to basically, their debt to income ratio has to support $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 extra of expenses, monthly expenses. So that, and
it might be at a different rate of payback. So they might have a 30-year mortgage. It's
correct.
Not like adding $15,000 to the mortgage because that's amortized over 30 years. And this might only be over 15.
Correct. So they have to be able to support. So a buyer would have to want to take it on. They're going to have, and so that means one, they have to have an additional credit check. So that can affect their credit score, which could then affect their rate, their interest rate that they're getting. And then on top of that, then they have to also support the extra payment or whatever that they have to make for this. And it will be still a lien on their house. So now they're coming into a house with an extra lien on there. It's easy to say in a seller's market where everybody's making a ton of money, whatever, they can pay it off. But what if we're really, I don't know who, hi Matt, and yes.
Hi Matt, yep.
That's what we're trying to point out today.
Exactly.
So
put it in a nutshell for us.
Correct. And the other thing is that when you're going to the sales process, it's not a matter of calling. It's not like calling ComEd and saying, hey, I'm Danielle Tully. I own this house. but Ruth Shan's buying my house, so tomorrow can you just put her name on the bill? There is a
whole new loan.
They have held, solar panel companies have held off and threatened closings because they don't care. Their time is not of the essence. Like our contract says, time is of the essence. We need to move along at everybody's same pace. Solar panel companies or solar companies do not need to, and they have put the house sale in jeopardy because they are not getting their act together.
And as you mentioned, they're not a utility. They are 100 companies. So
yes,
there's not like, you know, like you call the
Nicor,
right,
Comcast.
They don't, and they could, you know, who knows how long they might be around or whether they decide to pull out of the area. So I think there's a long way to go before this is a slam dunk. Again, if that's what you want, if you feel good about solar energy versus other forms of energy, if you, you know, have an electric bill that this is going to offset enough to make it worth it, by all means do it. But we have heard so many horror stories, especially as they've progressed into new areas and become more and more popular, that we just kind of want to say buyer beware, and understand that it is not going to add value to your house in 99.9% of cases, and it's going to actually make it much more difficult to sell.
Correct. Now, if you already have them, the ship has sailed, you have solar panels. We do have steps, like I was talking about these worst case scenarios as far as the solar panels holding things up. You know, we have steps available to us to make sure that we are on top of it from day one. We can start to contact the solar companies right away. We can try to figure out payment payoffs, and we can help you investigate this and make this as painless as possible.
And it's good to know your options up front so that we can actually present those to potential buyers instead of waiting until we're under contract and then finding out that it isn't going to work.
And share the intentions, you know, because I'll tell you what, I've had clients who are like, oh, we want to see this house. And I went, solar panels? What do you want to do about the solar panels? And they said, yes, that was on our mind. We weren't sure. If we as sellers agents can straight out provide our game plan, we know this is how much it owes. This is what the lease says. This is what the contract says. Maybe you had a loan as the seller and you just have to take it with you. You know, I mean, there's different things, but we can help you investigate where you are with this and how this is going to affect negatively or positively, and then be able to not have as many oops well into the contract, that we can make it as smooth as possible.
Yes, exactly. So if anybody has anything to say one way or another about solar panels, thank you, Matt, for chiming in. If anyone else has something to add to the comments, please plug that in. Danielle and I will be watching even after we're gone from the live to participate in a conversation. This is made for some lively conversations across the country. And Tim says that you can actually request solar power from your electricity provider without having the hassle of solar panels. One of the things we didn't touch on, but this is also something that people have been told and then found out that it didn't work out the way that it was presented to them. I'm sure for some people it does, but for some it doesn't, is that you can over-generate electricity and you can have excess energy and you can sell that back to the company. I'm not sure, Tim, if that's what you're if that's what you're referring to, that people are able to buy, but that might be. But we have also heard that, you know, especially in areas without a lot of sun, that sometimes isn't really happening. So people hope that they're going to not only have no electrical bill, but maybe be able to make a little extra money from it. and that may or may not work. So you might want to check with some other customers of the company and see how that worked for them in your area.
Yes. So
And that's good to know, Tim.
Yes, absolutely. So again, we're not anti-solar, but we just want buyer beware, both for our sellers and our buyers.
Yes.
To say it's not a slam dunk. This is something that, unlike most things I can think of, have affected the smooth transaction. There's really, unless you had work done on the house and didn't pay those debts and have a mechanics lien on it, for the most part, or stop paying your taxes, your property taxes, for the most part, buying and selling homes are pretty easy. Well, not easy, but straightforward, or, have kind of the next step.
This complicates it beyond the usual complication.
Correct. And so we just want to get out ahead of it and kind of tell you the pros and cons and let you know that we are aware of the pros and cons, and we won't be like, oh yeah, sure, let's sign on the dotted line here. Let's get your house sold. And then a week before closing go, oh, we were supposed to do something. So we are aware of it. We do have plans in place, and we just want you to be aware and let you know that we'll help you where we can.
And certainly we're going to, bring this up if we come over to your house and we notice there's solar panels on the roof. But if you're not planning on selling immediately, but you have any of these questions that you think we might be able to help you with, just, give us a call, shoot us a text. We are happy to help you navigate through these questions, even if selling is a long way off.
Correct. Absolutely.
We just don't like surprises. We don't like people to be expecting something that doesn't.
We don't want to be the bearer of your news.
Yeah, I hate that.
Ooh, I've got solar panels on a greenhouse. Okay, well.
Yeah.
Yay. Did you enjoy them?
Exactly.
So.
All right. So I'm Ruth, and this is Danielle, and we are
the Ruth Sheehan team with eXp Realty. And we are going to enjoy a sunny-filled weekend. See, your electrical panels will get lots of work this week. Or your electrical panels, solar panels will get a lot of work this weekend.
We've got an open house tomorrow in Lisle on I don't know how to pronounce the name of the street. Shibana. So
I think I've been pronouncing, because that's where I'm going this weekend. And I always Shibona, yes. And somebody's like, do you mean Shabbat? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not from out here.
Yeah. Tim, what were we watching in The Good Wife? He kept mispronouncing the name of a local Illinois town because they're supposed to be in Chicago. That was pretty funny. I don't remember which one it was. But
probably Des Plaines.
It was one of the. It was one of the ones like in the area you're talking about.
Well, I can never live in Wisconsin.
It'll come to me. I'll put it in the comments.
To save my life.
Which one?
I said I could never.
Manuka. Yeah, he kept saying Manuka.
Oh.
And they had to go to Manuka to a courthouse, and he kept saying Manuka in Manuka.
Nobody stopped him and corrected him?
You would think, right?
No, I was saying I could never move to Wisconsin for lots of reasons, but one of them being I don't know the name of my mother-in-law's town. Have no idea how to pronounce it.
Yeah. And then you have those towns like Bourbonnais, where half the population pronounces it Bourbonnais and half of them say Bourbonnais. Or Madison, Illinois.
Well, for the record, I'm a Bourbonnais Matson gal.
I'm a Bourbonnais Madison. And then there was a
Madison is up in Wisconsin.
Madison. This is Madison. All right. So we are putting the real in real estate for you, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care.